Ladies and gentlemen, some of you might have Shazam on their smartphones. Don't look, I've been told it's addictive. For those of you who don't know it, it's an app that allows you to recognize music that you hear around you. But you can also share it, download it, follow musicians, discover music before it is a hit, and so on. It's not just an app, it's an app bought by Apple. And it was founded by Philip Inghelbrecht. Philip Inghelbrecht now works in San Francisco. And when he is not taking care of his family or working or kiteboarding, my God, he is giving lectures, for instance, in his home country. Philip Inghelbrecht.
Okay, goedemorgen iedereen. Ik ben dus Bel, but I'll do this in English today. So good morning, everyone. Oh man, it's great to be here. And before I even get started, I have two little housekeeping items that I would like to get out of the way. And one, it's a small confession. People frequently ask me to talk about Shazam. And truth is that I mostly decline those opportunities. I personally just don't see the need to talk much about Shazam or put myself in the spotlight. But look, if there's a time and there's a place, it's here in my home country in Belgium. And as such, I am so honored to be here. And thank you for being here with me. Secondly, and I'll get to it in a moment, but 20 years of Shazam wasn't always smooth sailing. And throughout those years, I have always enjoyed the unconditional support from my parents. And to my joy, actually, my dad came today, and he's in the audience. He's sitting right there. So if you could put the light there, just for... So this is a great example of unsung hero. So thank you, Dad, for all those years. And so, but let's get into it. I know this is not what you're here for. And yeah, I suspect you all know Shazam. But here's a few fun trivia which you may not know. The first song ever Shazammed was a song by T-Rex, and that was on our launch date in August 2002 in England. And so there you have it. The most Shazam song ever was a song by the belated Avicii, Wake Me Up. That has been the #1 song for a while, and eventually you should expect that to change. And then I had the team at the headquarters check out what the most Shazam song in Antwerp is, or has been, this year. And it's a song by Tom Walker, Leave a Light On. By the way, this is an awesome track, so you guys have great music taste. Also turns out that people in Antwerp use Shazam every minute of the day. This is a distribution of the Shazams by time of day, and as you would expect, people get up around 7 o'clock, and they start Shazamming increasingly so, and then all of a sudden, it stops. It's lunch break, so I suspect that Shazamming is not socially acceptable during lunch, and then all hit the sack around 10 o'clock. And so fun trivia aside, Shazam has also become what I would call a sizable company. The service is available in 190 countries around the world. The app has been downloaded actually more than 1 billion times. I think the latest count will say that there's roughly over 20 million Shazams a day across a database comprising of more than 40 million unique tracks. The active user base is over 100 million people on a monthly basis. But most important of all, there's absolutely no service but Shazam that can drive music consumption. During the era of digital downloads, which is just a few years ago, I actually calculated that Shazam would count for 5 to even 7% of all music sales worldwide. And those are staggering numbers, but let me tell you, success did not come easily. This is Shazam between late 2002 into 2013, so it's a little outdated, but really that's beyond the point. Just look at its first 6, 7 years. We were flatlining, absolutely flatlining, so you might ask yourself the question, I mean, what were these guys doing? What were they thinking? And I mean, how was Shazam even possible? Because it wasn't until 2006 that the first iPhone came along, and as a matter of fact, it took another year before the App Store launched. And so obviously none of this was planned this way. And so in the next 15 minutes or so, I want to take you through the history of Shazam and 2 lessons that I have personally learned from it. And kind of see how those learnings, with a good dose of 2020 hindsight, will help us to understand and evaluate the future of music and the role that technology can play into it. So, without further ado, here's lesson number 1. Focus on the difficult, on the hard problems, and try to solve them with simple solutions. And I swear to God, Tim Harford, the prior speaker, and myself did not swap notes before we even got to stage. But I guess great minds think alike. So here's a reality. In 99, when I started the company, December 17, 99 to be exact, music recognition did already exist. But it was nowhere near the level required to make Shazam work. First of all, I needed a technology that was incredibly robust. Right? It had to operate with all these levels of noise and distortions, some of them mentioned on the slide here. And secondly, I needed a technology that was phenomenally scalable. Scalable in terms of processing a lot of incoming search queries at the same time, but also scalable in the sense that that search had to be performed across a database of millions of songs, not just a few thousand songs. And it had to be fast. People don't want to sit there waiting for an answer. And of course, above all, it had to be accurate. So my first 6 months of running Shazam was just going around the world trying to find the one person who could solve this problem for me, who could invent the algorithms, and as I always tend to say, who could crack the code for me. And so I would meet with universities and famous research institutes, Xerox PARC, Traval Research, MIT Media Lab, Carnegie Mellon, and the answer I invariably got was that I mostly got laughed away. People didn't think it was possible. Shazam was just a problem too hard to solve. But with a bit of perseverance and a small dose of luck, I stumbled across a professor at Stanford University. His name is Julius Smith. He's an incredibly sharp person. I mean, he's the person behind the kind of the algorithms and the Yamaha synthesizers and the like. But above all, he's an eternal optimist. And he felt that this was doable. And he was able to help me rank all those people that I had met or spoken to or interviewed before I even caught up with Julius. And by the way, these are my original notes from that meeting with Julius sometime in 2000. And his number 1 pick was a fellow named Avery Wang. And Julius felt Avery could do this. So I went to go see Avery. Long story short, convinced him to become a fully fledged co-founder in Shazam and just gave him very simple instructions. Avery, go invent this algorithm and get it done by June, because that's when I'm going to go out and raise money. So get to it. So obviously that's a very absurd approach, but lo and behold, Avery came through. And again, these are actually the original notes on the whiteboard when lightning struck that one night, when Avery came up with kind of the core approach, the core algorithm of how Shazam works today. And well, this is how Shazam worked. Imagery aside, it's actually incredibly simple. If I may say, it's incredibly elegant. As a matter of fact, most people who read the patent today, they look at it and they're like, yeah, I get it. That makes sense. Easy. That's obvious. I would have done the same thing. Well, if it was so easy and so simple, why didn't they tell me the year before that? And look, we don't have enough time for me to kind of explain, because I truly could explain to understand how Shazam works. But I do want to leave you with kind of a token of appreciation of what we accomplished. And so I'm going to play 2 sound files to you. The first sound file is 15 seconds, just the way we captured it on the phone. The second sound file is going to be the same 15 seconds, but after we kind of matched it, the corresponding clean song. So here's the first 15 seconds sampled over the phone. Usually I do a quick poll to see if anybody knows what it is. But obviously that sounded like a lot of gibberish. This was the song that was playing in the background. I'm going to play that first 15 seconds again, because now you know what to listen for, and so that you don't think I'm kind of like making this all up. So here we go again. So pay attention to the tones in the background. Okay, got it? So there it was. And that was the problem that we solved with, trust me, a simple solution. Now, once you've got the algorithm invented, you're not done. Because the algorithm needs to run on a cluster of computers, which must have their own software. Now, 2000 or 2001, you just couldn't go out and rent computational power from Google Cloud or Amazon AWS. That did not exist. So we had to build everything from scratch. When you came into the Shazam office in 2001, the floor was littered with hardware, components, screwdrivers, anything. We built all of this from scratch. And even today, Shazam doesn't use any of these type of cloud services. Shazam doesn't even run on CPUs. Shazam will run on GPUs with custom-written software for these special chipsets. So that's how far we had to go to make this work. Now, with that out of the way, we obviously had to build a reference database of music to match against. Well, this is what music looked like in the year 2000. The typical Virgin Megastore would carry something like 10,000 CDs. There was no database of digital music around. I mean, there was Napster in its infancy, but there was no central digital database. And so the solution turned out to be actually rather simple. I did a deal with the largest wholesaler in the UK, a company called Entertainment UK, and I put 20 of my people in their warehouse. And every day, they would pick a CD from the shelf, rip it, key in all the metadata, scan the cover art, and put the CD back in. And so in 6 months, we ripped over 120,000 CDs. Let me tell you, this was a 24-hour-a-day, 7 days a week type of operation. But we built the largest database of digital music back then, and probably still to date. And then we had to solve mobile. This is what mobile looked like in the year 2000. The Nokia 3310, many of you guys may have had this phone. 48 by 84 pixels monochrome, no touch, no CPU, nothing. You could do 2 things, make calls and send text messages. The way Shazam worked is that when you heard a song, you would dial a special number on your phone, let your phone listen along to the music. It's almost as if it was piped to an answering machine. And when we did the identification, we would send the name of the track and the artist back to you via SMS. And that special number, by the way, that was 2580, because we quickly realized that people can't remember phone numbers. But they do remember very simple things like patterns, like thumb strokes. The only 4 digits in the middle of the phone on any handset around the world, anywhere, is 2580. And by the way, just to give you a taste of the complexity, then of course we had to make some money, so we had to convince all the operators. When people dial that number and they get a text message back with the name of the track, then you have to reverse SMS charge them. And oh, by the way, we want a 50% revenue share on that. And just making sure that we had a launch which was ubiquitous in the country, we had to cut that deal with all the operators around the country. I mean, you put it all together, the probability of Shazam succeeding in the year 2000 was virtually none. If you look at each component in isolation and you multiply it through, we should not have been here. Okay? And the point that I'm trying to make here is that if you want to land on the moon, you've got to shoot for the stars. And if you do, and you do so with simple solutions, the payoff can be rewarding. So how does all of this now apply to the world of music today, you might ask yourself. So I explored one quick example, and I looked at blockchain. And when I talk about blockchain, I do not talk about Bitcoin. I talk about the technology, the architecture, that creates that incorruptible ledger of music rights and the economic transactions around it. And so what are some of the key obstacles that we face to apply blockchain to music rights? Well, first of all, we agree upon a standard, right? There's many approaches possible. There's so many ways to skin the cat. Ultimately, one will be agreed upon, and I give you, if you start this company, I give you a 10% chance. When you've done that, then you've got to convince the right holders, the record labels, the publishers, because they will care too. They may want to kind of introduce their own version, and so I think that's even going to be harder. I give that a 5% probability of success. And when that is done, then you need to integrate this not just with all the new music, but all the legacy music. Hundreds of millions of tracks around the world need to be kind of brought up to speed. And then you put a company around it, so I give that company another 50-50 chance of failing or succeeding. The chance or the probability for blockchain to change music rights as we know it today is incredibly, incredibly slim. I mean, look, this problem is almost too hard. It is bigger than ourselves. But as impossible as it seems, it is truly worth it. And I'll make the prediction right now that eventually one company will do it, and then we're going to look at it, and we're going to say, yeah, that's obvious. Yeah, no, of course, that's the way. How else would you do it, right? But seemingly we can't get there today. So go after the big problems. Use simple solutions. And I think Tim actually vocalized this really well in the prior presentation. So lesson number 2, think big or think bigger. And by the way, this is something we Belgians suck at. By the way, this is something I fail at every day. This is something Americans are incredibly good at. We see it as arrogant. We see it as rather absurdity. But when I started Shazam, I had this dream. I had this dream that one day Shazam could actually become a leading indicator of the music industry. And we are. We absolutely are today. This chart shows the peak moment of a song depending on its medium. In blue, Shazam, in green, sales, and in gray or black, radio. And you can see that a song will peak on Shazam before it peaks on any other medium. So music pundits and radio DJs today, they will actually use Shazam to inform themselves. Even artists will do. Famous artists like The Weeknd and Demi Lovato or can you guys hear me? They will use kind of the understanding of the geography of Shazam's to plan and schedule their next tours. But Shazam was even bigger than that for me. To me, Shazam was always a platform to recognize your contents, to recognize your environment, and engage with it. I saw Shazam not just as a way to recognize music, but to recognize what is played on TV and learn more about it. What's going on in the movie theater? What's on that billboard on the street that you see? Really anything. If you were to read, and you can do this because this is public information, if you were to read some of the patents that I wrote in 2001 and 2002, I talk about using Shazam, holding your phone to a tree, chirping birds, and use Shazam to tell you what birds those are exactly. And since then, many Shazam use cases or Shazam-like use cases have come out. And some of those are just absolutely genius. This is coming from people who dream so much bigger than I ever did 20 years ago. One of many. This is a personal favorite. What the font. So essentially, you hold your phone to a piece of paper, and it will tell you what the style and the font is. It's very neat. I love it. Now, there's a few of them which are not that serious. And I plugged this one from Twitter because I love it so much. and I can read it to you. And this guy said, look, it would be really cool if your friend was complaining, right? You could just use Shazam a few seconds of it and then find out what the whole deal was. Obviously, you might think that's not possible, but why not? Why can we not dream this big? And so that's my point here. Look, if you can dream ridiculously big and you start acting like it, then all of a sudden building towards it becomes so much easier. So, so actually, let's quickly think about the application of that in the world of music today. We all use music recommendations, right? We may have our Shazam, or sorry, our Apple or Spotify playlist, and it's a neatly organized group of 100 tracks out of a database of, let's say, 10 million. But you know what's even cooler? Adaptive music, right? Essentially, you don't create that playlist. Somebody will just, it's not a kind of a fixed 100 songs. It's going to be a fluid state of any songs out of that database of 10 million songs, neatly organized and picked to your personal taste and circumstances like place, time, and friends that you're with. But there's even bigger than that. AI, music, or an artificial intelligence composer. Why constrain yourself to that reference database of 10 million songs? Why not have music being written and composed to you on the fly exactly the way you want it? Not 100 songs, not a 10 million songs, but an infinite amount of songs in your playlist. I much rather see people working on those problems and those challenges than music recommendations. We're up on time, so I'm going to reformulate my 2 learnings into questions for you. Are you solving the hard problems? And are you thinking big enough? Thank you, everybody.